Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us today. I'm here before my conference to introduce you to the actual conference, which is actually whose title is Let's Talk Circularity. Our speaker today is Alistair Williamson, Vice-President at the LYCRA Company. Welcome, Alistair.
Thank you. Thank you, Francesca. Good afternoon, buongiorno, bonjour. So I'm very happy to be here. It's very difficult talking after David Shah, who gave such an amazing presentation this morning, and coming before Francesca, but I'll do my best. So let's talk about sustainability. 10 years ago, when I used to ask my colleagues or customers, what were the three biggest things that concerned them about sustainability? They could probably come up with one or two ideas, but they were probably fairly vague at that. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert in sustainability because it's such a huge subject, but I do read up quite a lot about it. I go to presentations like this. I take part in presentations on sustainability, and I'm very much involved in the work we do at the LYCRA Company in developing new products. But I think the fact that you've come to listen to a talk on sustainability shows that things have moved on quite a bit in the last 10 years. And normally when I address an audience like this, I try to look at the names of some of the companies that are represented by you in the audience. And I like to go in to have a look at your sustainability platforms. Because I'm probably willing to bet that every single one of you represents a company that has a sustainability platform with targets and goals just like we do. So as I go through this presentation in the next 20, 25 minutes, I'd like you to think about how the things that we're doing at the LYCRA Company to bring innovation to reach our targets for 2030 and 2050, how they will help you achieve your goals as well. So at the LYCRA Company, our sustainability platform, the overriding platform we have for everything we do with sustainability, is called Planet Agenda. Planet Agenda is based on 3 pillars, and when I look at the sustainability projects or reports of many companies, you have a very similar layout. So we have three pillars that we consider for all the innovation we do related to sustainability. The first one is corporate responsibility. This is about being a good neighbor where we make our products. This is about being a good employer so that employees want to come and work at the LYCRA Company, where we treat people with respect and humility. The second pillar is called manufacturing excellence. This is all about the manufacturing process that we go through. So how can we use fewer resources? How can we use less energy in what we do? How can we produce less waste? And the third pillar is about product sustainability. So these are the products that we sell to the market so that you, our customers, whether you're a fabric producer or a dye and finisher or a brand and a retailer, a garment maker, how can our products make your products more sustainable? How can we help them last longer, for example? Or how can we help our customers use less energy when they're making the fabric, or less dye stuff? So this is the third pillar that we have. Now, Planet Agenda started in 2008, and in 2008 we set out our goals for 2020. And I'm very happy to say we met all those goals. So last year we set up our goals for 2030 and 2050. And these are very much aligned with the United Nations sustainability projects. They're aligned with the Paris Accord. So a lot of the objectives we have tie up with those. Last year we announced the next round of sustainability goals, which, as I say, for 2030 and 2050. And we've actually signed an agreement with a company called SBTI, with a Science-Based Target Initiative, so that it's not just us saying this is what we're going to do over the next 10, 20 years, but they're actually going to be backed up by scientific facts and be verified by a third party. So for us, that's very important to have transparency and credibility. So how have we done in the last year since we published our reports with the next round of target objectives? If I talk about manufacturing excellence, one of the biggest problems that we face in terms of sustainability and looking after the planet is greenhouse gas emissions. That's why one of the main targets we have is to reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 50% by 2030 and try and be carbon neutral by 2050. So what are Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions? Scope 1 emissions are the emissions that you generate yourself in your own factory, in your manufacturing process. So it's the greenhouse gas emissions that we emit into the atmosphere when we're making the energy to run our machines. Scope 2 emissions are the emissions that come from the people who provide you with the energy. So for example, in our plant in Northern Ireland, we're working very much with the local gas and electricity suppliers to move from fossil fuels to sustainable sourced energy. We set ourselves a target to reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 50%. In the last 12 months, we brought them down by 13%, so we've made a good start. Another big problem for the environment is waste, how much waste ends up in landfill. So we set ourselves a target to try and reduce our waste by 40% by 2030. Now actually as a company we actually produce very little waste. Our manufacturing process is very efficient. Less than 1% of our waste ends up in landfill. But even so we think we can do a lot better. We have 6 manufacturing sites around the globe. Probably 95% of the LYCRA that's supplied to the companies who are represented here is made in our plant in Northern Ireland. So it's a European produced LYCRA. But we have plants in North America, in Mexico, in Brazil, in China and Singapore to supply the local markets. And in the last 12 months, 100% of those factories have done the HIG FEM self-assessment, and half of the factories were actually assessed by a third party, so they were verified by a third party, achieving very good results, so we can be very proud of that as well. Now I've talked about Scope 1 emissions and Scope 2 emissions, but Scope 3 emissions is also very important. So Scope 3 emissions, these are all the other emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, from the whole value chain. That's much more difficult to analyze. So we spent the last 12 months trying to understand the baseline of those emissions. So these are the people who supply the raw materials and the items we need for our own production. Now I think this is important because as a supplier of a fiber to the textile industry, to the swimwear industry, we are one of your Scope 3 emissions. So if we can reduce our carbon footprint, then obviously we're going to help you to achieve your goals. Now let me talk about product sustainability. How have we done in the last 12 months? I'll talk first about 2 polyester products. We have Coolmax and Thermalite. Our target is to have, by 2025, so that's very soon, 80% of what we sell to be made from recycled raw materials. Now what do I mean by that? For the polyester recycled raw materials we use predominantly PET bottles. But more and more we're looking to use textile waste, which is waste that's generated from our own industry. So rather than taking plastic bottles and recycling, we have a project to use more and more textile waste. This is post-industrial, it's post-industrial, but in a way it's post-consumer because the textile waste that we take, it comes from the cutting room floor. So it's almost impossible to make fabric without, to make a garment without cutting out around the fabric and losing some of the waste on the floor. So if we can take that back and recycle it back into the process, then we're helping to keep it out of landfill. Now obviously the most sustainable way of producing is to get it right first time, to produce no waste at all. As I say, if you're cutting fabric to make garments, it's very difficult. But from our process, our industrial process, then our aim is to try and get down to as minimum as possible. And this is a personal opinion, but I find it quite surprising that sometimes companies make a sustainability statement by saying they can recycle 100% of their production and use that as a post-industrial recycled product, which to me doesn't make sense. To me, the most important thing is to get it right first time and have as little waste as possible. Just a couple more things on product sustainability and how we've done the last 12 months. 90% of the products we supply of LYCRA have the cradle-to-cradle gold certificate, and all our plants around the world, those 6 plants I mentioned, are Ecotex certified, Ecotex 100. Okay, so I've talked a bit about the last 12 months, what we've done. We've achieved some things which again could be aligned with your goals. I'd like now to talk about what is our vision for our product going forward. So this is what we're working towards. And I think this is quite an important slide because it tells you about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the process. So I want to read this to you because I think it's interesting, our product vision. Our product vision is to create resilient fibers, that means durable fibers, fibers that last longer, that deliver on our brand promises. So that means they don't compromise on protection against chlorine, they don't compromise on the stretch and recovery, they don't compromise on comfort. So whatever we do to the fibers to modify them, to make them more sustainable, we're not compromising on our core values, so that we're still giving you products that give you what you need in your fabrics and your garments. I'll continue. I haven't got my glasses on. Just a second. So our product vision, to create resilient fibers that deliver on our brand promises, use fewer finite resources. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment, but that is important. Most spandex today, probably all of spandex today, comes from fossil fuels. So what can we do to move from fossil fuels to a sustainably sourced raw material? Extend the garment wear life. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the garments that you make with our fibers are more durable, because if they're more durable, then they're more sustainable. Let's keep them out of landfill for as long as possible. And ultimately, when the garments do break down, how can we recover the raw materials of those fabrics or those garments and use them again? So that's our product vision. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the bit in the middle, about the durable fibers, and then I'll come back to the other part. So I just want to quickly run through our portfolio of products for swimwear, highlight the sustainability aspects of them, and introduce a couple of novelties that we have this year. So the first product we have, this is our main product we offer for swimwear, is LYCRA Extra Life. Now, one of the biggest causes for a swimwear garment to break down is because of it's been attacked by chlorine. Chlorine is the biggest enemy to spandex in a swimwear garment. So what we've done is we've taken our standard LYCRA fiber, we've added a package in there to protect against chlorine, so that the fiber and the garment will last up to 10 times longer than unprotected chlorine product. But chlorine isn't the only reason why a garment loses power and breaks down. There are other things that can be hazardous for swimwear garments. Unsaturated fatty acids. Where can you find unsaturated fatty acids? In sun cream. So the typical thing, you're sitting on the beach, you put your sun cream on, and then you wipe your hands to clean off the sun cream. Well, by applying that on your garment is an attack on the swimwear garment. It can break down the spandex or the lycra in the garment if it's not protected. Unsaturated fatty acids are also found in perspiration and sweat. Obviously, it's hot on the beach, so that can also cause a breakdown to your garments. LYCRA Extra Life will protect against that. Ultraviolet light is also a problem. And extended exposure to heat. So again, you've been sitting on the beach all morning, you take off your wet swimsuit, you put on a dry one because you're going to go and have a paella in the bar on the beach, and you put your swimming costume in the back of the car, in the boot of the car. The car can get up to 60, 70 degrees centigrade. Now that's tragic for a swimwear garment. It can break down very quickly. But if you have some protection with LYCRA Extra Life, it'll help it last longer. So why is this important? This is important because it helps your garments to be more durable. The second item we sell a lot into swimwear is LYCRA Black. Now, again, if a swimwear garment doesn't break down, why do people throw their garments away? Quite often it's because the color has gone, because they don't like the look of it anymore. It doesn't look new. So with LYCRA Black, you can help the garment to look better for longer. How does this work? So LYCRA Black is a lycra fiber with a spun-in pigment into the fiber. So the package looks black. So that means that if you're knitting a garment with a darker shade, then it will keep its color, it'll keep looking better for longer. And it avoids that, what we call grin through. You know, if you open a warp knit fabric and it's got a elastane in, you can see the white between it. Well, if you use LYCRA Black, then it prevents that, so it makes it look a more uniform garment. So that's the advantage of LYCRA Black. Now, last year, we were very proud to announce that we'd introduced this new product called LYCRA Adaptive. Now, why is this special? LYCRA Adaptive is made from a different type of polymer. This is a polymer that reacts in two ways. So if you're wearing a garment with LYCRA Adaptive and you're in a stationary position, it will allow the garment to adapt to the shape of your body and to fit very well. However, if you get up and start moving and you start stretching, the second part of the modification of the polymer will kick in, and it will allow the garment to move with you like a second skin, so it feels you don't feel the compression when you're moving, but it actually helps to move with you. So this is really a brand new innovation. We launched it last year. There are some fabrics around the show showing LYCRA Adaptive, so it's been, we've had a lot of interest from brands and retailers around the globe, so I think we'll see a lot more of this product going into swimwear because of its attributes. Now what's new this year is that we've added the chlorine package that I mentioned before. So that resistance to chlorine, to unsaturated fatty acids, is now built into LYCRA Adaptive, which makes it ideal for swimwear. The other novelty this year is LYCRA Adaptive Black. So just as I said before, the LYCRA Black has a spun-in pigment into the LYCRA, so we do with the LYCRA Adaptive Black. So it's, again, ideal for swimwear, to prevent the grin through and to make it look better longer. Now you'll see here a difference in the image. All those other images were around swimwear garments that can be worn in the swimming pool, but it also can be worn on the beach. But if you're talking about competitive swimming, where you're spending a lot more time in the water, there's a lot more attack from chlorine, LYCRA fiber can be good, but we have another product which can be even better for competitive swimming, which is LYCRA Type 400. Now LYCRA Type 400 is interesting because it's actually made of polyester. It's got two types of polyester in it, and both are different. So when you knit the fabric, you knit it in the normal way, but once you process it, you set the fabric, then the two fibers shrink at a different rate. So you create like a coil. So that means you build in an elasticity into the fabric that lives the life of the garment, lasts the life of the garment, and has very, very good power and retraction. But because it's polyester, then it's chlorine resistant, so it'll last much, much longer in a garment, but it gives you a certain amount of recovery. The other interesting thing about LYCRA Type 400 is one of the two fibers that I mentioned is 100% from recycled PET, and the other part has bio-derived raw materials. So it's GRS certified, so you have the stamp of sustainability on this fiber as well. Okay, so those are some of the fibers we offer for swimwear. Let's go back to this slide because there's some interesting things I'm going to talk about now. Now I'd like to talk about the bit at the beginning, this bit down here. So I'm going to talk a little bit of chemistry now. Probably know this already, but let me tell it to you anyway. So LYCRA and spandex is made up of two main raw ingredients, raw materials. One is called PTMEG, which is about 70%, and it's a chemical. The other part is called MDI, which is another chemical. So the PTMEG is what gives the stretchy bit, and the MDI are the solid bits which hold the stretchy bits together. Now today, the raw materials all come from fossil fuels, they come from oil. So the project we're working on is to replace the raw material for the PTMEG with a product that comes from corn. So again, a bit of chemistry. The step before the PTMEG is a product called BDO, butane diol, which is a chemical. So it can come from oil or it can come from corn, and it's exactly the same. So why is this important? This is important because you can replace one with the other and you have exactly the same product. So there are three really important things about this innovation. The first one is that this isn't just a laboratory scale test that we're doing. This is going to be taking place at scale. So as I say, one product will replace the other. The company with whom we've reached an agreement to supply us the raw material is building a factory as we speak, and our plan is that ultimately all of our LYCRA fiber will be made from a bio-derived source. So ultimately we will move entirely from fossil fuels to a bio-derived source. A third party verifying to see the impact that this has on our carbon footprint says that we can reduce our carbon footprint by about 44% by moving from fossil fuels to corn. So that's a huge impact on our carbon footprint, but again, it's good for our customers because it will allow you to reduce your Scope 3 emissions. And the other thing is, because it's a chemical product, it's just a drop-in. We call it a drop-in. That means that people making fabric will see no difference at all. People making a garment will see no difference at all from the standard LYCRA fiber. Now, how do we know this? Well, we know this because in 2014, we launched the same product, but it was a bit too early. So we really struggle to get enough interest to sell this product commercially. Now, 10 years later, 9 years later, we've announced it again. We've got a lot of interest. So as I said, 10 years ago, the understanding of sustainability is very different from what it is today. So we've got a lot more interest, and I think this will be a very important step for us and for our customers. The technology for making BDO from corn is patented, and we have the patent for turning BDO from corn into a spandex fiber. So obviously this is good for us because it protects our innovation, but it's also very good for you, because if you're making a statement that your garments made with LYCRA, made from the sustainably sourced product, will prevent you from being copied by other people who are not using LYCRA fiber. The other thing that's important to note here is that we have a brand. So obviously the LYCRA logo that we know, but LYCRA Eco-Made is the brand name that we will use associated with this fiber. So any garments that are made containing the bio-derived LYCRA fiber can use this brand. And we think that's a very powerful tool because it's a well-known consumer brand. It expresses a degree of quality, but also the Eco-Made suggests that it is better for the environment. So just quickly, what's the timeline? I mentioned we launched this, we announced this a year ago, was the agreement with this company called Core, who supply us the bio-derived corn, BDO. For the last 12 months, we've been going around the trade, talking to our biggest customers, talking about our project, asking whether they want to be on the journey with us. And as I say, we've had a very good response. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be spinning in our factories the very first samples of this, which we will test in the trade next year. And then we will start going at scale from 2025. Now, 2025 may sound a long way away, but it's not really. It's around the corner. So this will be coming very, very quickly. Okay, so let's go back to this magical slide where we've got our product vision. We've talked about the bit in the middle. We've talked about the bit at the beginning. Now I'd like to talk about the bit at the end. Now, unfortunately, garments do eventually come to the end of their life, sadly, and something has to be done with them. At the moment, too many garments are ending up in landfill, and really the biggest thing we can do from a sustainable point of view to look after the planet is to prevent garments going from landfill and finding a way to reuse them. Now I know we're all very conscious that spandex is seen as a problem when we come to recycling garments in particular. So what's the current status? So if you take a low content of spandex in a garment, typically in denim, with, let's say, between 3 and 5%, they can be recycled. What's the word I'm looking for? Mechanically recycled. Mechanically recycled. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking those garments and you're putting them through a shredder, and you're breaking out all the fabrics, all the strands in everything in the fabric, and then use that shredded fabric to make something else. Usually, it's an inferior product, but at least it can be used again. You can make rags. You can make things that don't go into landfill. When you talk about fabrics that have, or garments that have between a slightly higher percentage, let's say between 5 and 10%, then again, these today can be recycled, but they tend to go into things like padding, insulation, and again, they're downgraded in terms of the original quality of what they had. You can keep them out of landfill, but you're not giving them the new lease of life. Where we start to run into a problem is when you have fabrics or garments that contain more than 10% spandex. And obviously, if we're talking swimwear or intimate apparel, we're in that category. So what are we doing about this? Now, 10 years ago, when I talked to my technical colleagues, can we one day, do you think we can recycle the LYCRA in a swimwear garment, take it back, and respin it? And they said, don't be ridiculous. Now, fortunately, as I say, things have moved on in the last 10 years, and science has advanced, and there are new techniques. So we did an experiment. Ultimately, our goal is to be able to make fibers, that all our fibers can be recycled and reused again. So the experiment we did with LYCRA, we took a special type of LYCRA and we put it into a polyester fabric. And it was, I think, a 30% LYCRA, 70% polyester. And we're working with quite a lot of recyclers around the globe to try and find a solution to this. And what we managed to do was to separate, through chemically recycling, separate the polyester and separate the LYCRA into like a mush. we took that mush back, we formed it into a polymer, and we spun it again. And we put it into another fabric with 70% polyester and 30% lycra. And the results of that fabric were very similar to the original fabric. So this for us was a real breakthrough. In fact, this is really new. The first time this was talked about in public was, I think, a month ago at Dornbirn, when our sustainability director gave a paper on what we'd done. So I think this is a really important step. I have to say we're right at the beginning. It's that we've got a long way to go, but we've proven that it can be done. So don't give up. Keep using spandex or lycra in your garments, because there is a future here. The other thing we've done is, now recycling is incredibly complex, because you can have polyester fabrics with lycra, you can have cotton or cellulosic fabrics with lycra, you can have polyamide, and all of those require different technologies to recycle them. So as I say, we're working with a lot of recyclers around the globe to find solutions for all of these. Obviously for swimwear industry, it's very important to have a solution with polyamide, because that's most of the garments are made with nylon and lycra. But the good news is that we've made a lot of progress on this. So eventually, what we're hoping is that we can have a raw material that comes from a renewable source, that's corn, to make a fiber that is more durable, and then at the end of life we can take it back and we can reuse it again. I talked about Lycra Type 400, which is the one with the two types of polyester. So what about recycling that? Well, again, we've done quite a lot of development work here. Because it's a special polyester, we didn't realize, or we didn't know how it would perform after chemical recycling. So again, we worked with some recyclers. We did what they call glycolysis, which is the chemical process of breaking down polyester. We took the raw material to get back to our plant, we respun it, and we were able to make 100% polyester fabric that had very similar characteristics to a normal polyester fabric in terms of abrasion resist and uniformity and so on. So, I think it's good news. As I say, we've still got a long way to go, because this doesn't just depend on us. As you can see here, there are lots of people involved in this future world where we can recycle garments and take them back and recover all the raw materials in there. To do this at scale, we need people who can identify, can split the fibers out when they're taking the fabrics or the garments in. First of all, we need a source for recovering the garments. European law says that by 2025, every country or every town has to have curbside recycling. Like today we have bottles, we have paper, we have plastic. By 2025 we also have to have for garments. So what are we going to do with those garments? Who's going to take them back? So there's a lot to be done in terms of, first of all, finding the way to gather those garments together, then to be able to separate the different fibers, and then to have people who at scale can do that recycling. But at least the good news is that lycra shouldn't be a problem, because we've proven that technically you can do that. So that's all I was going to say. Thank you very much for listening. We do have a very comfortable lounge area at the back next to the Fashion Predict. So if anybody would like to ask any questions or find out a bit more, you're more than welcome to come and ask questions. As I say, I'm not an expert in sustainability, but my colleagues who are here, they know a lot more than I do. So we'll try and answer your questions as best as possible. Thank you very much. Oops.